Today, here I am. I'm moving, and I'm moving to a new house and unpacking and packing, and lots of it's happening. So I'm looking at social media, and all of a sudden, I see people acting the fool, losing their mind, talking about some comments Stephen A. Smith made on Sean Hannity's show, and I see this 30 or 40-second clip that was posted, and anytime I hear some comments, what I like to do is I always like to say, what actually precipitated the comment? What set the comment up? What was the question? What was it? And so I want to walk through right now this whole segment, because even when I saw it at home, there were some problems that I had with it from a factual standpoint. So roll it.
All right, now last night we showed you a clip from my next guest who has a message for the Democratic Party. Here's a reminder.
It's much ado about nothing. To my liberal friends out there, all you're doing is showing that you're scared you can't beat them on the issues and the merits.
Here now with more. ESPN host, the one, the only, he hates to admit he's a friend of mine. You can admit it, just say it. My friend Stephen A. Smith is here.
Of course we're friends, man.
Anyway, great to have you. I thought that was gutsy. I kind of like your podcast because you go off into, other topics besides the area of expertise that you're in, which is sports. You said that. First, the question I have is, what was the reaction to that?
Obviously, I took a lot of heat. A lot of people didn't like the fact that I said it. They wish that I had it. And when I give a damn, I'll let you know. I don't care. I'm going to speak my mind. I'm going to speak what I believe to be true. And when I think about Donald Trump, I think about this case in New York. I mean, I'm looking at the Democrats right now. And again, primarily, I have voted Democrat throughout my life, but I'm utterly disgusted with what I'm seeing, because it seems to me that they're trying to use the law and the courts. They've clearly politicized this thing with Donald Trump because they can't come up with a strategy to offset the momentum he's clearly gained. In at least 5 polls, he's up. He's up in the polls over Biden, at least 5 polls that I counted. That's the reality of the situation. Despite the counts against them, the indictments against them, being impeached twice and all of this other stuff, he is the presumptive GOP nominee. And you don't seem to have the issues in your favor, you believe. So because of that, you're going to manipulate the system as best as you possibly can to avoid him possibly running for re-election again. That appears to be their strategy, but I'm here to tell you, it's not working. It's not working at all, and to be quite honest with you, I don't mind the fact that it's not working, because I might not be a supporter of Donald Trump, but I want him to lose the right way. I want him to lose because you have better ideas, and you make your case to the American people better than he does. That's why I want him to lose. I don't want him to lose the way they're trying to make him lose, because I actually think that the case in New York City is pretty weak, if not flat out bogus. Have you remember John Edwards? Have you remember Gary Hart? Have you remembered some of the things that Clinton has gone through? Now we're going to talk about a hush money case that took place while he was running for election in 2016, but he was in office until 2020, and now here you are in 2024, months before another election, and he's the presumptive GOP nominee, and this is what you're trying to do. It's a disgrace. It's weak. It's pathetic. And somebody needs to say it. The Democrats need to come up with a better strategy.
We all can have our opinion on something, but what we cannot have are our own facts on something. So what Stephen A. had to say in terms of by saying that this is bogus, here's the problem. What Donald Trump is on trial for is literally the exact same thing his attorney pled guilty on. Henry, go to my iPad. This is a press release from August 21st, 2018, from the Department of Justice, from the U.S. Attorney's Office, the Southern District of New York. It says Michael Cohen pleads guilty in Manhattan federal court to 8 counts, including criminal tax evasion and campaign finance violations. So wait a minute. If the charges against Trump are bogus, were the charges against Michael Cohen bogus? The facts are the facts. If you break the law, you break the law. Here we have the attorney for Donald Trump who pled guilty to the charges. That wasn't a Democratic setup. No Democrat made Donald Trump illegally pay off a porn star and use his attorney to hide the payoff because he did not want the voters to know about it. Let me remind Stephen A. and Sean Hannity, this happened before the election because Trump did not want the world to know that he paid off a porn star. This is called a fact. So it's hard to call Trump's trial bogus when it's literally the exact same charges that his own lawyer faced that he pled guilty to. So this is not a question of they're trying to get Trump. They got Cohen, and he pled guilty to the exact same thing. Now, when Stephen A. was talking there, he mentioned several people. He mentioned John Edwards, and he mentioned Bill Clinton. Interesting. Henry, go to my iPad. On June 3rd, 2011, this is a press release from the Department of Justice. Former Senate and presidential candidate John Edwards charged for alleged role in scheme to violate federal campaign finance laws. Now, this was, of course, after the fact. Now, remember, he was the VP nominee for John Kerry. He was charged in 2011. He, of course, was a former United States Senator. Was this Republicans going after a Democrat, John Edwards, in order to keep a Democrat out of the White House? Hold up. My bad. The date here says Friday, June 3rd, 2011. Oh, a Democrat was in the White House. Oh, I'm sorry. Was Obama president? Obama was elected 2009. Am I right? So this is 6-count indictment against former Senator John Edwards for violating federal election laws during his campaign for president of the United States. Quote, public servants are held to the same laws. This is the key. Public servants are held to the same laws as everyone else in this country. The position sought does not exempt anyone, even those running for president of the United States. See, here's the problem here. When I saw the segment, and then when I hear these conservatives, what they're suggesting is going after Donald Trump is just so wrong. But if you don't do wrong shit, they don't go after you. Has anyone bothered to remember that there's a reason why he is the first former president to ever be indicted after serving? Because he did wrong shit. Now, Stephen A. also mentioned, well, he did these things before he won, and they waited all this time. That's because there is a document in the Department of Justice, which, by the way, was written under the Richard Nixon Department of Justice, because it was written so he could not get indicted while president, that says you can't go after a president while they're in office. That's actually a DOJ letter That's actually not a ruling from a judge. That's not a ruling from the Supreme Court. That's not a law from Congress. That is a memo written under the Nixon Department of Justice. These folks are facts. That's the case. Now, the actions of Trump took place before. Guess what? Can't go after him while he's president. You pursue the charges afterwards because he no longer has immunity from prosecution. So that's actually why you waited. And then when we talk about these cases against Donald Trump, when we look at these 4 indictments, okay, you got the hush money, you got that one. And then of course, you have the federal indictments on classified documents in Florida. Why is that important? That's important because let's remember, the Library of Congress kept asking Trump, the archives, can you turn the documents in? Can you turn them in? He wouldn't turn them in. Can you please turn the documents in? You wouldn't turn them in. Can you turn the documents in? He wouldn't turn them in. Can you turn the documents in? He wouldn't turn them in. The lawyers were negotiating with his lawyers for a very long time. He told his lawyers what he didn't have. Then, of course, he said, oh, no, I didn't move documents, but he did. He wasn't the only person who was charged. What did he? So, Stephen A., Sean Hannity, why is that a case? Because he broke the law. There's a sign above the Supreme Court says equal justice under law. This man has never been held to account. So how is he somehow being persecuted? All he had to do was turn the documents in. End of conversation. No FBI showing up at Mar-a-Lago, no lawyers, no indictments, no drama, no trial. No, he said, my documents. I can keep my documents. But he was wrong. They were classified documents. He did not declassify them while president. You can't declassify when you no longer have the power. So to even suggest that this case is political persecution, no, he broke the law. I just did a segment where a black man was pulled over for a broken taillight, and when the cops pulled him over, he had a civil issue, a civil warrant. They called, they said, yes, bring him in, and they tried to bring him in. He eventually gets shot. That happened. If you break the law, or if or you're alleged to break the law, you're going to go to trial. You have the third case. Okay? The 2020 election. Interfering with the election. Is this trial bogus? Did Donald Trump not call and say, find me those 11,000 votes? Oh, guess what? There have been at least 3 people who've already pled guilty who were indicted with Trump. So if this is a bogus case, why did they plead guilty? One of them was a lawyer. It could be because they realized their asses were guilty, and they agreed to testify against the other defendants, including Trump. You can't call that trial bogus. You can't say it's unfair, the Democrats are going after him. If you break the law, you break the law. This man is not above reproach. This man cannot just do whatever it is that he wants to do. Tish James in New York took him to court for inflating his assets. Is that bogus? Reminds me of a certain man named Dan Morales. Dan Morales was a former Attorney General of Texas. Henry, go to my iPad. Dan Morales pled guilty to mail fraud and filing a false tax return. Morales pled guilty to counts 9 and 11 of the March 6, 2003 indictment. He admitted that he backdated official government contracts and forged government records for his personal enrichment and that of his friends. Count 11 of the indictment references Morales claiming his 1998 income as $39,734 when he knew the income to be substantially in excess of the amount stated on his income tax return. So now let's compare. Dan Morales went to prison for 4 years. That's a federal indictment. Donald Trump was accused and went to civil court of inflating his assets in order to apply for business loans. The reason I know the Dan Morales story, Dan Morales did the exact same thing. He went and applied for houses and cars, inflating. So are we saying that the Dan Morales case was bogus? See, this is the problem when you don't want to deal with facts. I'm not dealing with emotion. Here's the reality. Donald Trump literally lied about the size of his condo in Trump Tower. You know the same man who they call small hands, and that bothered him because he thinks something else is small? He lied. He lied. He told them, oh, my apartment is 30,000 square feet. It wasn't. I think it was like 10 or 11. It's a lie. He literally lied to obtain loans. You can't do that. If Roland Martin filled out a loan application and said, I've got a 25,000 square foot house, and my house is valued at $4 million, and I got a 6,000 square foot house, and it's valued at $1 million, I lied. I can be prosecuted. So if I can be prosecuted, why can't Trump be prosecuted? Prosecuted and persecuted are two different things. Press play.
Because this ain't working.
Let me ask you this. We look at polls. Polls are always broken down demographically, and you see this major erosion in the Democratic base for Biden. African Americans, Hispanic Americans, young people, suburban women, for example. I mean, numbers that we've never seen before. In terms of a Democrat. If he doesn't get his base back, which I would argue he's been trying to do, starting with the State of the Union and his jacked up address, he's got no shot. And if Donald Trump could hold on to 5, 10, 15% of the numbers that he has now, he will win the next election. Why is that happening? That's my question.
Right there. Now see, right there would have been great for Stephen A. to say, Sean, allow me to correct you. Because what Sean is doing is he is speaking about these polls, namely the New York Times and CNN poll that has been showing that, oh, Donald Trump is going to get he's getting 23% of black support. Okay? Really? That's what you've been seeing, right? Well, guess what? Do you know what Fox News hasn't done? And unfortunately, what most mainstream media hasn't done, but we've done? We actually talked to the two black pollsters who did polls that specifically surveyed black people. Terrence Woodbury did a poll for Higher Heights of America and the National Coalition on Black Civic Participation in Black Women's Roundtable. He did a poll. They specifically polled black people. Their poll is completely different from the New York Times CNN poll. Now, let me help y'all out with some basic math. If the New York Times CNN poll polled 800 people, that means they polled a very small number of black people. So of their poll, a small number of black people said, I'm backing Trump. So when the stories were done, oh my God, Trump is getting 23% of the black vote. They were hyperventilating on Fox News, on MSNBC, and CNN, and all about, oh my God. They were like, oh my God, every single day. But then Terrence Woodbury's poll comes out, where 800 black people were polled. None of them covered it. Told a different story. Cornell Belcher, he did a poll for Black Pac, told a different story. Who did he poll? All black people. So if you're going to cite a poll on television, or in Sean Hannity's case, he tells Stephen A, 5 polls, that's where Stephen A should have said, let me help you out, Sean. This poll here of specifically black voters told a whole different story. That completely changes that narrative. But it's not just that. If you don't want to go with that poll, if you don't want to go with that one, well, guess what? The folks at Pew recently did a poll. And the folks at Pew recently showed that Trump ain't getting more than 10% of black voters. Oops. Say what? Did you just say that? In fact, check this out. I was sitting here looking at a tweet today, and you're gonna love this here. This came out, and it shows, and the tweet was, at this stage of the race, the black and Hispanic support for Biden at this stage is on par with previous years. Do you see that orange line? That's the 2020 election. The green line is 2016. So at this point, so you see right there where the purple line is, at this point right here, at about 15, 18 weeks, the numbers are on par with previous elections. This right here is net black support. Then you have net Hispanic support. So what you now are seeing Biden's poll numbers increase with black and Hispanic voters. Guess what you also are seeing while that is happening? You're now seeing Biden closing the gap in the various battleground states with Trump. Y'all, it's April. So to think that April is going to look like November is crazy. This is why research, studying, examining the issues absolutely matter. Press play.
Well, first of all, the streets don't seem safe, and people want safety. We can sit up there and lament, quote unquote, law and order, which is what Donald Trump used to verbalize. But the fact is, the American people like law and order. We want our streets safe. We want to make sure that you've committed a crime, you get to go to jail. You don't sit up there and get arrested and you're out the same day. You don't want to assault people and you're out the same day. That's number one. Obviously, number two, the economy, which is usually number one, because people don't understand this when it comes, especially the black folks. Okay, let me tell you something right now, Sean. When you talk about the economy, to black folks, that means money. To everybody, it means money, but especially to us, okay, who are no longer the dominant minority in this country. Those are the Latinos. When we talk about the economy, we're not talking about, the state of affairs economically or even the job participation rate. We're talking about the money that you keep in your pocket. When you go to the gas station and it's exorbitant prices, when you go to the supermarket and milk and bread and cheese and all of this other stuff is exorbitantly high compared to what it once was, that is a red flag to a lot of folks because the...
Right there. So we want to compare an economy pre-COVID to post-COVID. Sure, we can do that. While doing that, though, we might want to talk about that the black unemployment rate hit a lower point under Biden than it did under Trump. We might want to talk about that more black businesses have been created under Biden than Trump. We might want to talk about The fact that you have corporations that continue to jack up prices even though the supply chain has been significantly diminished. We might want to talk about those different things. But here's the deal. Even with all of that, the fact of the matter is, when you look at these numbers, and this right here was the Newsweek story that just dropped last week, Donald Trump's hopes of black support stung by a new poll. A new poll has suggested Donald Trump would not garner significant support from black voters in November election. This is the Pew Research poll. It says 83% of black voters favor the Democratic Party, a 3% decline from 1994 when 86% aligned in this way. 12% support the Republican Party. This marks a 1% decline from 94 when 13% supported the party. Y'all, this is the actual Pew Research story. So, here's my whole point. If we're going to talk about black voters and what they are saying, we can't speak anecdotally. We actually got to use data. And the data totally disagrees with the assessment. Press play.
Money you keep in your pocket is what tells you whether or not the economy is flourishing or not. So those are just a couple of components that come into the equation. And dare I say something that will probably be termed the most uncomfortable thing that I've ever had to articulate out of my mouth from a political perspective. But I got to tell you something. As much as people may have been abhorred by Donald Trump's statement weeks ago, talking about how black folks, he's hearing that black folks find him relatable because what he's going through is similar to what black Americans have gone through, he wasn't lying. He was telling the truth. When you see the law enforcement, the court system, and everything else being exercised.
Stop. Hold on. Because I want y'all to run that back. Because this right here is where I'm like, huh? So what Stephen A is saying, because I actually posted a tweet, then he responded. What he is saying, because see, two things were said at one time. That's why I want y'all to roll it back. Two things were being said at one time. He says that he's not saying that Trump is being persecuted like black people. But so I want y'all to roll it back. I want y'all to play it again, because I'm going to unpack what he just said. Go.
That I've ever had to articulate out of my mouth from a political perspective. But I got to tell you something. As much as people may have been abhorred by Donald Trump's statement weeks ago, talking about how black folks, he's hearing that black folks find him relatable because what he's going through is similar to what black Americans have gone through, he wasn't lying. He was telling the truth. When you see the law enforcement, the court system, and everything else being exercised against him, it is something that black folks throughout this nation can relate to with some of our historic, iconic figures. We've seen that happen throughout society.
Stop right there.
No matter what.
I would have loved to know specifically what historic, iconic figures, because I know Dr. King went to jail. I know Dr. Jim Lawson went to jail. I know that they went to jail, but they did not hold classified documents. They did not pay off porn stars. They did not try to overturn an election. They did not overstate the value of their properties to apply for business loans. So therefore, there literally is no comparison. Press play.
What race, what ethnicity you may emanate from. We relate to you when you're suffering like that because we know we have.
Stop.
And that's what he articulated.
When you're suffering. Go to my iPad. This story is from June, this is from 2016. Hundreds claim Donald Trump doesn't pay his bills in full. Dozens of lawsuits allege the businessman didn't pay what he owed. And you go through right here. The small businessman won a bid for a $100,000 grand piano to install in Trump's Taj Mahal. Guess what? Trump refused to pay him, only paid $30,000. Show me a black man who could do that. 200 liens since the 1980s were filed by contractors and workers who said they were stiff. Show me a black woman who could do that. 253 subcontractors on a single project were not paid in full or on time. Show me a black woman who could get away with that. 24 Fair Labor Act violations by Trump Plaza Casino and Trump Mortgage for failure to pay minimum wage or overtime. Show me a black person who could do that. Show me a black person who could get away with having a fake university and have to shut it down and still run for president and still win. Show me, in fact, show me a black politician who actually, while in office, has refused to pay the bills for security at rallies they had and still run for president. I would love to see him. I would love to see him. Got a story right here. Donald Trump has a long history of not picking up the check. He loves promises unfulfilled and bills unpaid. Yo, please, by all means, show me somebody black who could get away with that. Black folk don't identify with Donald Trump because Donald Trump is not being persecuted. Show me a black person, please, who could be in court and the judge issue a gag order and then this person violates the gag order. Show me a black person in America who could insult a judge and his daughter and still be walking around free. Donald Trump did that. He did that. Press play.
As unpopular as it was, as much as we didn't like to hear it, it's the truth. And there's no way around it. Those are all contributing factors to the state of affairs with the slippage that appears to be taking fold when it comes to President Biden, unfortunately.
Back to me. That's simply not true. It's in the data. It's in the data. Black PAC poll, Higher Heights poll, Black Women's Roundtable poll, Pew Research poll. The last four. All of that other stuff was based upon one poll with a very tiny percentage of black people. This is why facts matter. This is why data matters. Not emotion, data. Not feelings, facts. And we know Sean Hannity ain't gonna cite any of these facts that counters Trump's lies because he believes it. One final point I'm gonna make, press play.
About racial disparity in our justice system. And you know what, Stephen A.? There has been. You're 1,000% right.
Roll that back. Roll that back. I need you to roll back what Sean Hannity just said.
You're talking about racial disparity in our justice system. And you know what, Stephen A.? There has been. You're 1,000% right. Now, just for the record.
Come back to me. All right. So here's Sean Hannity. Oh, Stephen A., you're absolutely right about racial disparity in the criminal justice system. Well, Sean, tell me the last time you actually covered that. Tell me, Sean, you have actually covered the case of Tara Moorhead, the white woman in Kansas, who for 40 years was putting black folks in jail, was putting black people, again, in jail, made up confessions. She now has surrendered her law license. She's going to get disbarred. Show me how many times you, Sean Hannity, have covered these cases of black men being shot by cops. Show me, Sean Hannity, how many times on your show you have fought for black men who were incarcerated in prison and wrongfully convicted, and some of them still not being paid. Show me, Sean Hannity, where you and Fox News covered the black man in St. Louis who, as an undercover cop, was beaten by other cops, and earlier this week was awarded $27.5 million. Don't you sit your punk ass up there and go, oh yeah, Stephen A., you're right. There is bias in the criminal justice system when your sorry ass never talks about it and never covers it. In fact, you denigrate black people on a regular basis on the network. But no, you only said that because Stephen A. was supporting your position that the trials against Trump are him being persecuted when he's actually being prosecuted. But what I'm not going to do is let Sean Hannity even remotely get away with that when you have never seen them cover these cases. We do this every single day. And I can guarantee you're never going to see Sean Hannity on a consistent basis speaking against the criminal justice system. Because, matter of fact, play it again for the folk who didn't hear it. Just run it back one more time.
You're talking about racial disparity in our justice system. And you know what, Stephen A.? There has been. You're 1,000% right. Now, just for the record.
Here we go.
I was on
all
your
right,
podcast,
Sean.
you're like,
well, then you tell me,
up...
Sean, how many times have you covered black folks being beaten by jailers and by wardens in prisons? You tell me how many times have you covered these sorry, stank, nasty, decrepit prisons in Mississippi and Alabama and in Texas? You tell me how many times have you covered these cases? You tell me have you covered the case we did earlier of the brother who was shot and killed in Minneapolis and the family filed a federal lawsuit? Tell me, have you covered the case of the brother who was shot in Alabama we covered the other day? Tell me, Sean Hannity, how many times did you do stories on the goon squad who beat 2 black men, sexually assaulted them in Mississippi, and those 6 cops have been convicted on state and federal charges? Don't you dare sit there and pimp black people with that throwaway comment when you know damn well you do not, nor have you ever, Sean Hannity, stood with black people fighting racism, fighting what's happening in the criminal justice system. And Stephen A., you should have corrected him. You should have challenged him. Y'all, if I was on Stephen A.'s show, and I've been on many times, and Stephen A's supporter of this show, and I can call him and text him, but his facts were wrong. The data was wrong. And we have an obligation, I don't care whose show we do, whether it's ours or somebody else's, to present truth, to present facts. And the reality is, black folks ain't caping for Donald Trump or feeling for Donald Trump, thinking he's been persecuted. Donald Trump is a rich white man who has never, ever, ever been held accountable for his actions. That man started his career on racism. They used to mark C at the top of applications, and that's why the Department of Housing and Urban Development sued them for racial discrimination. That is a fact. Donald Trump was running around talking about illegal immigrants. And who do you think was working in his estates in New Jersey and in Florida? See, I'm going to call it what it is. And we're going to speak factually about this. Let me be absolutely clear. Above the Supreme Court, equal justice under law. But we know, because we can see it our own black eyes, that Donald Trump don't identify with any black person whatsoever. Because I dare anybody to put Donald Trump on a stage with that brother out of North Carolina who was in prison for almost 30 years. Put him on stage with black men who were on death row, who never did it. Please, by all means, I can't wait to see Sean Hannity invite Stephen A. Smith back, and invite Michael Harris, because he has a long thread on Twitter about it. But talk about Tara Moorhead in Kansas City. Oh, I can't wait to see a full week of coverage on Sean Hannity's show about discrimination and racism in the criminal justice system. It's one thing I will not do is hold my damn breath. Because if I do, I ain't gonna be here on Monday.
Fanbase is pioneering a new era of social media for the creator economy. This next generation social media app with over 600,000 users is raising $17 million, and now is your chance to invest. For details on how to invest, visit startengine.com/fanbase or scan the QR code. Another way we're giving you the freedom to be you without limits.
So, anytime Donald Trump does anything with black people, we should just automatically assume it's fake. So you've seen the videos, Trump dropping by this Chick-fil-A in the Atlanta University Center, and he gives this black woman a hug, and oh Lord, MAGA has been just excited, and oh, look at the black people just loving on Trump, and look at this here. And like, so here's one of the videos. They were like, look who popped by the AUC, and while he was in Atlanta. Let me start this over so I can play it for y'all, because it's actually, to me, it's pretty hilarious. And I'm gonna pull up in a second, so give me, try to pull it up. And so again, the way folks have played this is that this was just a surprise visit, and he dropped by, and he's coming by and look, and then of course, folks at Fox News, they love running with it, and that boy Lawrence B. Jones, who ain't never seen a fact he refuses to check. He just fact checking evades Lawrence B. Jones like a haircut, and so check this out. Watch this here.
Thank you, everybody. And if they run a little bit low, give them some extras, okay? Are you the boss?
No, sir. Not
Come here. Thank you. Thank you very much. You take care of yourself. Thank you, everybody. Yeah, come on up. Come on up.
Thank you.
We appreciate it. With that beautiful hair.
Come on, Marika. Come on. Marika and James, I got your phone. Come on.
Go ahead, take your
Come on.
Come on.
Here we go. In place. Okay. Oh, I got to go this way.
Thank you.
Sitting here, and again, it's like, oh, this is, and then the sister, she's talking about the Atlanta University, talking about, oh, we support you. Folks on social media like, girl, who the hell is we? Who the hell is we? Like, who you speaking about? We support Trump. Well, the folks at Midas Touch, they've been tweeting about this, and they were like, yeah, that was all a lie. Let me show you what they put up. Because they talked about this, saying that what was portrayed as, this impromptu thing, you'll see it right here, breaking, Trump's viral hug at Chick-fil-A was actually with a MAGA operative. It turns out Michaela Montgomery is a political consultant who worked for the Georgia GOP for years and is a city director for Candace Owens' Blexit organization. That sort of blows up that BS nonsense. Kelly?
I mean, and I really hope I'm not, being too mean about this, but I have yet to see a group, a singular person or a group of black people around Trump that looks presentable. And by that, I don't mean like respectability, politics, and politically presentable. I mean, the crusty wig, the ingrown hairs on the beard, the wrinkled shirts, the disheveledness. And it's like you scrape the bottom of the barrel of what we represent. And I'm not saying that we're a monolith or anything like that, but it just goes to show you how far and deep inside our trenches you have to go in order to find black people or any race, really, to stand next to Trump in confidence as though it is a good thing to do, as though you should be proud of doing it. That is like my biggest takeaway from seeing this footage and seeing this content. It's like, this is not a representation of black people. This is not what we are about. And the pandering that these black people have been doing, the groveling that I see them doing in order to be accepted by this very racist, very bigoted, very ignorant white man it's just astounding to me how far some of us are willing to go in order to feel accepted.
Here's his tweet here, Trump's press secretary. Michaela Montgomery, who met President Trump at a Chick-fil-A in Atlanta, joined Fox and Friends to discuss why she and so many in the black community are all in for Trump. It was staged. It was a joke, Michael. Come on. That's all it was. It was fraudulent.
What do you expect from a guy who gained fame from a reality TV show? And he wasn't the one that came up with the phrase "you're fired." And according to Joanne Reed on MSNBC, it was the producers of The Apprentice who determined who was going to be voted off as well. So this is expected. Remember, 2015, when he came down that escalator at Trump Tower, we found out that those people there trained for him. Many of them were paid to be there. OK, then he came to Metro Detroit. I can't remember what he was in Detroit or a suburb, but recently he was here in Metro Detroit and visited an auto plant. And we found out that, number one, it was a non-union auto plant, number one. Number two, many of those people who were said to be Trump supporters, they were paid to be there as well. So this is what you get. All right. We have to expose this fraud. And I saw that video today on D.L. Hughley's Instagram page. We have to expose this fraud and these grifters and then present the facts and evidence. Proper documentation ends all conversation. But this is what you're going to get. You're going to get more of this from Donald Trump, who's pandering and can't present any policies that are realistic that are going to help African Americans. Now compare that to what Donald Trump and Joe Biden, Kamala Harris have done, especially with student loan forgiveness that continue today.
Now, and if y'all want to laugh, if y'all want to see a straight up minstrel show, okay, watch this.
On the campaign trail for one voter who got a big hug from Trump at an Atlanta Chick-fil-A while he met with supporters. Watch.
I don't care what the media tells you, Mr. Trump. We support you.
We love you.
Okay, 4 p.m. We've been 4 p.m.
Come here, let me give you a hug.
Please do.
Look at here to tell us about it is that young woman herself, Michaela Montgomery. She's also the founder of a grassroots political group to conserve the culture. Michaela, I've been waiting for this interview all morning. So
I've been waiting for this my whole life.
And I've been waiting to say both of y'all out y'all damn minds. Matt, now
see what I'm saying with her appearance?
Matt, not only that, he goes there and he lies. He mentions, I've done more for HBCUs than any president in history. Flat out lie. He mentions opportunity zones. Flat out lie. I mean, just lie. This was a staged event, and the Republicans are trying to push it out as if, this was just spontaneous, that he just gave a hug to this sister. She's a campaign op.
Can I yield my time to Kelly? Because I know Kelly wanted to get something in. I'm happy to yield that before I get.
Kelly's still trying to go in her appearance. So we got it.
It's not just about appearance, Roland. It's just like, for me, I'm about packaging, right? Even if you're an op, even if you are paid to do something and make it look like something else, look good doing it.
I got it. But here's my whole point. She's an op. So what they've done with this is try to play black people. And this is what they do. It's not real, Matt. And again, you sit an op there who brings 4 or 5 other loud black people. The cameras come there, and their whole deal is, see, the black people just loving them some Trump. You're an op. You're not real. And so my whole deal is, every time he comes around black people and starts lying, somebody needs to be there saying, every time you keep saying you've done more for HBCUs than anybody else. How much? Can you give me the number? Can you tell me, what did you do? Opportunity zones. Can you tell me exactly how much of that money went to low-income residents, people of color? Please let me know that. They can't tell you.
No, they can't. And that's why right now we need that brother with the viral video. Why you always lying? Why you lying? Right? Notice I sang those partials right. But in any event,
first of all, you talking about my man Allscript. You talking about Scotty. So yeah, go ahead.
Hilarious. That joint had me dying. But in any event, Here's the thing. Not only are they lying, it's like we have short memories, because this is the same person who took out a full-page ad calling for the death penalty in response to the exonerated 5. So, 30 years later, to be acting as though you are a friend to black people, or that you have, black support in larger swaths than those who are paid or otherwise incentivized to come and support you, is flatly dishonest. But the thing about this is we see Mr. Trump doing this in not only as it relates to true political events, but selling Bibles. Like, bruh, come on, you are the person who least lives the edicts of the Bible, but you're selling Bibles? But there's such a large contingent of people out there who just are not daunted by that. And that's the bigger issue here, is that it seems like the Trump team is just emboldened to do and say whatever they want, because there's no real political loss and no political accountability for him continuing to lie. But what I think is especially problematic about this is that, look, black people don't have to be monolithic. We are allowed to have our own individual thoughts, but you should never sell your self-respect in order to get clout. And that's what people like this young woman are doing, right? You're going to go and shuck and jive to get your 15 minutes of fame, but it's ridiculous, because if you agree with his policy positions, of which he has none, then, you can trumpet that and say, look, these are my closely held beliefs on his actual policy. But that's not what we're seeing. We're seeing political pageantry, both from those pandering to him and Mr. Trump and his team pandering to black people with high top sales and Bibles.
It's also no shock when you have Lawrence Jones who will go on Fox News and just blatantly lie and just act just like when he had that other fool with the dude who supposedly was with BLM in Vermont. The most softball of softball interviews, and the dude was just straight lying the whole time. And so, Lawrence, do a fact check. I mean, bump it to a fact. Okay, maybe you don't search for one, but bump into a fact one day. But again, that's what you see, because what they love to present to their mostly white Fox News audience, hey, here are the blacks. Look at the blacks who are supporting Trump. And I'm going to say this here again for the low information voters out there, the people who don't pay any attention, all of y'all who thought these checks were overflowing to the black community when Trump was there, just want to remind y'all that was COVID. Just want to remind y'all of that. So if y'all actually think that Trump is just going to be flowing checks to the black neighborhood if he actually wins, y'all all need to be drug tested, because it ain't happening. And all of you are going to be in for a massive rude awakening when there comes more tax cuts for the rich and he leaves your broke asses out to dry, like he's done Giuliani, like he's done everybody else who stood with him. But y'all go ahead and play that little game and actually think Trump has your black back. No, he plans on sending your black ass back to somewhere else. Because as he said, why can't we bring in more people from Norway, from Switzerland? What he's saying is white people. Just so y'all know.
Fanbase is pioneering a new era of social media for the creator economy. This next generation social media app with over 600,000 users is raising $17 million, and now is your chance to invest. For details on how to invest, visit startengine.com/fanbase or scan the QR code. Another way we're giving you the freedom to be you without limits.
All right, folks, some breaking news. Just months after it was announced that he would become the new president and CEO of the Rainbow Push Coalition, founded by Reverend Jesse Jackson Sr., Reverend Dr. Frederick Douglass Haynes III announced that he is abruptly resigning as head of the organization. This is a statement that was released about an hour ago. After continual prayer and deliberation, I have decided to step down from the position of Chief Executive Officer and President of Rainbow Push Coalition, effective immediately. I remain committed to honoring the rich history of RPC and the legacy of its esteemed leader, the incomparable Reverend Jesse L. Jackson Sr., and most significantly, to the calling and pursuit of social justice. I extend my heartfelt gratitude to all who expressed their support since my appointment in July of last year. Rest assured that my work in the fight for liberation and freedom continues. Yours in the struggle, Frederick D. Haynes III. Now, my understanding that a joint statement is being prepared as we speak. A statement from Reverend Haynes as well as from Reverend Jesse Jackson Sr. Now, folks, again, we just showed you this here was the video in July where Haynes spoke. As you see, sitting behind him, this was at Apostolic Church in Chicago, was Reverend Jesse Jackson Sr. Over Freddie's right shoulder was Reverend James Meeks, longtime chairman of the board of Rainbow Push, no longer on the board. Also, the longtime senior pastor there in Chicago as well of Salem Baptist Church, one of the largest churches, the largest black church in Illinois, but the second largest church overall. He's no longer on the board, but again, that was that. Then, of course, we were in Dallas just a couple of months ago when Freddie actually raised his hand and was installed as the new president.
He always shows up to see the one and only legend icon.
Video there. So here is the installation video from Dallas, Texas.
Founded by Reverend Jesse L. Jackson Sr., Rainbow Push has a rich history of challenging and transforming systems in the pursuit of liberty and justice for all. And it seeks to empower the vulnerable through the effective use of grassroots advocacy, community mobilization, and issue education. Rainbow Push protects. Rainbow Push defends. Rainbow Push advances the cause of freedom, fights for economic opportunity, educational equity, environmental justice, and the enfranchisement and empowerment of the oppressed and the disheartened. Therefore, it gives us great honor and joy, Reverend Dr. Frederick Douglass Haynes III, to announce that you have been tapped by the Reverend Jesse Louis Jackson Sr. himself, confirmed by the boards of Rainbow Push to serve as the second president of Rainbow Push. Will you please come forward? Pastor, do you promise?
Now, that was February 1st. Here we are, April 16th, and all of that is now changed. So, what happened? Well, listen, I spent 6 years in Chicago. I know a number of different people. Calls are out. I've already talked to a number of different folks involved. And here's what you have here. And everyone knows this. And this is not breaking news. The reality is Rainbow Push Coalition is all Reverend Jesse Jackson Sr. The idea that Reverend Jackson was going to step aside, not going to happen. And so this is really a fundamental question that Reverend Jackson has to answer, his family has to answer, and the Rainbow Push Board of Directors has to answer, because the reality is he makes the call, not the board. They're going to have to make a decision, and that is, how do you want to truly honor the legacy of Reverend Jesse Jackson Sr.? Do you want to have a shell of an organization that has leadership that bends a knee to Reverend Jackson and the family, or do you want to carry forth Rainbow Push further to the 21st century? We've seen examples. I'm going to use Reverend James Meeks as an example. When he stepped down and retired as a senior pastor of Salem Baptist Church, he had said years before that Reverend Charlie Dates was going to replace him. And when Reverend Dates became the pastor, Reverend Meeks stopped showing up at church. Why? Because you can't have the new leader there and the old leader, and people still gravitate to the old leader. What do you think? What do you think about the sermon? What do you think about this? What about this? A new leader has to lead. A new leader has to bring in their system, has to bring in their people. They have to be able to lead. You can't be in a situation where you're constantly asking permission to lead, not when you are the president and CEO. That's really what happened here. Now, you're going to have a lot of people say, well, Freddie Haynes could have done this, and the family could have done this. At the end of the day, this is very simple. When the decision was made to make Reverend Frederick Haynes III the president and CEO of Rainbow Push, was he truly given the reins to leave? Either you're given the reins to lead or you're not. Listen, when the NAACP Legal Defense Fund, when Shirley Eiffel stepped down as the leader and Janae Nelson became the leader, it was a smooth as silk transition. That's how it's supposed to be. When my man, Reverend Charles Jenkins, when he left, still a young pastor, as a leader of fellowship in Chicago, he replaced Reverend Clay Evans. When he transitioned to his successor, guess what? Smooth transition. That's how it's supposed to be. You cannot have folk fighting the transition. Whether it's a church, civil rights group, corporation, you can't do it. You've got to allow new leadership to lead. Look at Disney. Bob Iger picks Bob Chapek. Guess what? Iger stays on longer, finally leaves the board, pining for Iger to come back. Chapek doesn't last long. Guess what? He gets fired. Who replaces him? Iger. It's because they were all pining for him. So you got to make a decision whether you're going to actually move forward. Now, why does this matter? Because we as African Americans, we should never be in a position where we're starting over. We shouldn't be starting over. The reality is, Reverend Jackson is still here. He is still among us. But we have to be honest. And it's hard to be honest. The fact of the matter is, because of his Parkinson's disease, Reverend Jackson is incapacitated. He simply can't travel like he used to. He can't speak like he used to. He can't lead like he used to. Which means there must be new leadership allowed to lead. I'll give you a perfect example. And again, I was there. Every Saturday, they had their Saturday morning workshop, which dates back to the early 70s. When I was there, save for a few major events, the place wasn't packed. It wasn't 200 people there. So you got this cavernous facility that's being broadcast, and I get how it's done, but guess what? Freddie Haynes or whoever's new leader, they could actually go live on Instagram and have more people watch them live than sitting in the audience. So why hold on to an old model? Here's what I also know. Rainbow Push is a shell of itself financially. They aren't even considered one of the major civil rights groups anymore. I'm just being honest. And so tonight, there needs to be some serious soul searching by everybody involved as to what are we doing here? Are we a museum organization, or are we an active civil rights organization continuing to do the work of the people? There are very good examples of egoless transitions where it's done right. I'll give you another example. Bruce Gordon, he was a black man who ran a $24 billion division of Verizon. He became the president and CEO of the NAACP. He lasted a year, but it really wasn't a year. He went to Julian Bond after 1 week and said, this is not going to work. I'm out. They convinced him to stay, but here's what happened. There was friction there between Julian Bond, who was the board chair of the NAACP, and Bruce Gordon. Now, if you're Bruce Gordon and you direct report to the CEO of Verizon and the board, and you ran a $24 billion division, the NAACP budget is chump change. But you had Julian Bond, who wanted to control and run the organization. Even when you have a president CEO, the chair cannot do that. The leader has to lead. I've run 3 black newspapers. And every black newspaper that I've run, every single one, do you know what I said when I came in? I must have complete control of the newsroom. I must have complete control of personnel. I must have complete control of the budget. If my butt is the one that's on the line, then I need to be able to do this. That was every single one. Dallas Weekly, Jim Washington, who recently passed, that's how it was. Now, here's why I left the Houston Defender. I'll never forget. Son of Messiah Giles, who I love to death. We had a meeting. So she loved Franklin Covey. So we had to mind map. So we're going to mind map the front page article. I'm not about to sit here and mind map an article. I'm an experienced reporter. This ain't my first rodeo. I'm not an intern. And I'm like, I'm not doing it. That's actually when I decided to leave. I'm like, I can't, no. I'm the managing editor. I'm not sitting in a meeting mind mapping an article. Not when I've already been a county government reporter in Austin, a city hall reporter in Dallas, the managing editor of the Dallas Weekly. I'm not doing that. Not when I got awards on my shelf. Not when I was the co-lead writer of the Fort Worth Star Telegram, when the Alfred P. Murrah Federal Building blew up, and I had the front page byline for the first 4 days. I knew my experience. I wasn't going to do that. But guess what? She owned the paper. It was hers. She should be able to run it the way she wants to run. I got to go. So what we have to understand, as African Americans, whether it's churches, fraternities, sororities, men's groups, women's groups, any organization, we've got to understand that in order for our organizations to be effective in the future, we can't be mired and stuck in the past. We've got to understand that if we went through a proper vetting process, if there was a vetting process here, and there was complete buy-in from the board leadership on down, then you move forward. But the point is this here. You don't pick a new leader and you handcuff them, put duct tape on them, and put them in a straitjacket. It's not going to work. It's not going to work. So frankly, all that pomp and circumstance, I feel like, hell, I wasted money flying to Chicago for the announcement, covering it, then going to Dallas for the announcement, live streaming that. We're the only black-owned media outlet that did. And here we are. Rainbow Push is the new president and CEO. So here's what I'll say to the Jackson family. Jonathan Jackson is a member of Congress. Okay. Yusef, do you want to be the president and CEO? If so, do it. Jesse Jackson Jr., Do you want to be the president and CEO? If so, do it. Santita Jackson, if you want to be the president and CEO, do it. Jacqueline Jackson, the daughter, if you want to be the president and CEO, do it. If this is perceived as a family business, well, damn it, run it. But our time has been wasted, frankly, over the past 10 months. Wasted. And now, everybody look bad. Now look, breakups happen, things are not how they're supposed to go, but this is real basic. Are leaders going to lead, or are they simply for show? And if they're for show, say it. But I can tell you something right now. If I was hired to lead, and you're going to tell me up front that I am the leader, I expect to be able to do what I was supposed to do. But if you're going to get in my way, then why the hell did you bring me in here in the first place? Look at my panel here. Randy, I want to start with you. I used examples such as the NAACP Legal Defense Fund. Seamless. Going from Sherilyn to Janae. Seamless, not an issue. We've seen other examples. Seamless. This is messy. This is not a good look.
It's not a good look. And you hit on something that those who know me well have heard me complain that I love our people, of course, but we do have a difficult time with change. And I don't know if it's because, we were ripped from our, homeland, but we cling to tradition and old things to a point to the detriment of many of our organizations. And I believe we have a difficult time of letting go and a difficult time with change. Of course, all people do, but I think it's particularly tough for us. And it's something that we need to work on because it's important that we progress, that we make progress, and we move forward. So I understand that some people probably were giving, people a hard time because new is hard. But we do need new ideas. We do need to move forward in order to attack the challenges that we have right now. I'm sadly not surprised. We do see this happen quite frequently in our organizations, but I hope that we really try as a community to, support our newness, to support our leaders and allow them to lead, while also honoring those who, led the path in the first place.
Mustafa, again, many of us, yours included, was excited about this new leadership, breathing life back into Rainbow Push. Again, Rainbow Push, Reverend Jackson had done some incredible work over the years, but the reality is the organization was not what it used to be. And this now makes matters worse. And frankly, if I'm even being considered for the job, why would I want it? If I'm not going to be able to run the organization, if I can't come in and assess staff and assess budget and look at needs, look at focus, I really thought Reverend Haynes could have been great because the base of Rainbow Push for a long time has been Chicago. That's been the base. That's where Reverend Jackson is. Where Reverend Haynes is based in Dallas. Well, you look at where African Americans are, significant growth in the South. I thought that with him being in Dallas, he could actually establish a second beachhead, if you will, for Rainbow Push and really begin to push them and advocate in some areas of interest. But none of that actually came to pass.
Yeah, I was excited too for Reverend Haynes. I know that he brings a youthful energy that is so critically needed. And at the same time, we also understand that our organizations are needed now more than ever with all the challenges that we have in front of us. We need a strong Rainbow Push coalition. It's interesting. People often talk about succession planning, but oftentimes they're not serious about that. They want certain elements of it, but when it comes to the fullness of turning over responsibility to the next leader, then as we've talked about, people kind of get funny about that. And, they have an opportunity in this moment to actually attract younger people, to get that energy that's going to be necessary for us to fight the battles that we have in front of us. But one, you've got to be able to find the right leader. And right now, if somebody sees what currently has kind of played out in front of us, a lot of the top folks will probably say, there are some other choices out there. Now, of course, there is the historical aspect of Rainbow Push and people wanting to be tied to that. But, this is a different day. There are numerous opportunities that are out there, and, top folks will have choices. So I wish them well. Of course, I wish, Reverend Haynes well. But we've got to get serious about making our organizations 21st century organizations. And that means that new leadership has to come in. We can honor our elders. We can honor those who actually help to, move the path forth. But at the same time, we're going to have some folks who are bringing some new innovation and ingenuity into. We've got to be able to embrace.
Look, the reality is, you take Joe. People make decisions, and people look, there are corporations, there are companies out there, family-run businesses, where children go along their own way. I know former Congressman Jesse Jackson Jr., he's been focused on teaching, he's been focusing on writing, and so guess what? Again, that's what he wants to do. Good. You don't have to actually take over something and run something. Good. So you do what your passion is. And so you do what in any other child. So, but what has to happen here, and again, and I love Reverend Jesse Jackson Sr. dearly, but the reality is this here. Reverend has to let go. Reverend has to let go. You have to let someone lead. And again, this is not a question of, okay, and trust me, they're going to be, well, did Freddie do this and he didn't do this? Bottom line is this here. You don't quit this quickly if, again, what is it you were not able to do? And I don't care what it is. I don't care. I don't care. Listen, if you're a politician, here's a perfect example. Here's a perfect example. If you're a politician and you elected to Congress, and I noticed for a fact, because this happened with a freshman member of Congress, and black folks had an attitude. Freshman comes in, they didn't keep the staff of the previous congressperson. They don't have to. They got to bring their own team, Joe. That's how it works. Okay, and so we have to understand that's how it works. And again, here's what bothers me the most. This irks me to no end. You have Rainbow Push. Reverend Jackson has done all of these things, has all these relationships, and you've built, follow me here, folks, you built this thing here. And now you have two ways to go. You can either go higher or go down. And so I'm gonna say this here, and again, folk may be mad at me if I say this, but I'm gonna use two examples in black-owned media that I think speaks to it. And again, this is there ain't no personal attacks. It's just my perspective in terms of what I saw, or what I also understand because of history. Robert Abbott founded the Chicago Defender. Robert Abbott knew, I'm not going to live forever. So what did he do? He trained his nephew, John Sinstack, to take over the paper and to elevate it. That's exactly what happened. He picked his successor, trained his successor, and then put them in charge to elevate the product. When Sinstack health was failing. He didn't do that. When John Sinstack dies, guess what? The paper is in disarray. Family fighting, who's gonna buy it, what's up. That thing was in the course on and on and on, and it was awful, awful. That's what happened. That's what happened. John H. Johnson ran Ebony Jet with an iron fist. The reality is when John H. Johnson passed, the company was in distress. Why? Because he didn't embrace the internet. Ebony was far behind everybody else because they did not embrace the internet when John H. Johnson was publisher. So all those years building it, and then it comes crashing down. Now Ebony is a shell of itself. This is what I routinely say about black organizations, black companies, you name it. How do founders position the business or the organization for success when they're no longer here? That's how I determine your greatness as an organizational leader. Not like how you led it, but how you left it. Joe?
Yeah, I mean, if you're running in a relay, and there are several of you, once you pass the baton, by definition, once you've passed the baton, you slow down because you don't have the baton anymore. Theoretically, whenever that person that is to carry on the baton got on board, there should be some unanimity about the goals, right? And that's why they took over. And maybe it's the goal that the person that had the baton wanted it to be. But he might wear different shoes. He might have a different running style. He might be a different height. He might have super long legs. He might have short legs that go like this, but you still get the job done. So at the end of the day, what has to happen, whether organizations, I've seen this happen with law firms. People who, want the firm to die with them. If you want that to happen, that can happen too. Or if you want it to be something even you didn't think it would be. By definition, you have to embrace the future and what's going on around the corner. So the question becomes for Rainbow Push, notwithstanding everything that Jesse Jackson has accomplished, we all understand that that's the part we know. We understand his impact. We understand that Barack Obama has him to thank. We understand the things that Rainbow Coalition has done, Rainbow Push. But the question is, can it stay relevant? And by definition, whatever organization, there's no disrespect to that organization or to Jesse Jackson to say that you've got to be able to turn a corner. We all know that if Brother Haynes has come off this quickly, then there's a problem. I mean, the formal installation was a couple months ago. So, just like the same fights that happen between organizations, young and old, everybody kind of wants to hold on to power and how it's perceived. Sometimes in the black community, when it comes to civil rights, we want to be the contact person. This organization wants to be the person. We want to be the one that people have to pass go to. But Reverend Jackson has to embrace the future. It's interesting that none of his kids are taking it over. Maybe they wanted something different, and that's fine. But when you put somebody in place to let them lead, make them accountable for leading, but let them lead. Let it go, because at some point, that's the best part of this thing, is being able to let something fly and become something that's going to battle, connect with all of the challenges of tomorrow. And Rainbow Push has done too much in the past to not have a future. But you have to put the right people in place. You have a moral center, like a civil rights organization would. Brother Haynes does that. You have some clear goals, theoretically. There's no reason that you can't let go other than to say that you don't want to, and that's too bad.
And again, y'all, I'm very clear in terms of how I feel about Reverend Jackson. And you know what people have always said? Let me just be real clear. And Reverend ain't never letting go. Reverend ain't never. That I can name y'all 100 people, 1,000 people, but that's the case. But this is what I will say to Reverend and anybody who's around him. The reality is, you got to. The greatness of the way you truly honor a founder, the way you truly honor a founder is not to talk about them in an historical context. You honor a founder by talking about them in a present day context. Al Newharth, who was the CEO of Gannett, he is called the founder of USA Today. USA Today still exists. Now, it's not the same as it was in 1990, in 2000, or even 2010. But today, because it still exists, Al Newhart's name is still mentioned as the founder of USA Today. The family that owns the New York Times, same thing. Even when you talk about the Washington Post, although Jeff Bezos owns the Post, they still reference Katharine Graham. They still reference her father because that's the history of it. So therefore, the Post is not being discussed in an historical context of what was. It's being discussed within the context of what it is. Now, folks might say, well, when Katharine Graham ran it, this happened with the Pentagon Papers, this happened with Watergate, but it still exists. So what I am saying is, the worst thing in the world is for black people to invest time, energy, money, prayers into building something and then all of a sudden, watch it collapse. No. Powerful institutions outlive founders. Powerful institutions are constantly in pursuit of evolving, changing, and building. And that means that there might have to be a radical departure from how things used to be in order to now operate in a new system or in a new paradigm. And so I'll await this joint decision from Rainbow Push and Freddie. I will see what it says. But I will say this to the leadership of Rainbow Push. And it starts up here with Reverend Jackson. You've got Yusef Jackson. You've got board members. They now have to decide, what are we trying to do here? What are we actually trying to do here? If the desire is to be a museum, then you know what? Shut it down. It happens. Organizations in, companies in, they phase those things out. They say, we're winding down operations. If that's what it is, do it. But if the objective is for Rainbow Push Coalition to be here for another 50 or 100 years, then they're going to have to accept the reality that it means allowing new leadership to come in and lead, not follow, not trail behind, but lead.
Fanbase is pioneering a new era of social media for the creator economy. This next generation social media app with over 600,000 users is raising $17 million, and now is your chance to invest. For details on how to invest, visit startengine.com/fanbase or scan the QR code. Another way we're giving you the freedom to be you without limits.
I've said to y'all on numerous occasions on this show, on others, Republicans are who they are. It is about power. Don't believe any of these people when they stand in front of the cameras and they're grandstanding and they're just making all of their pronouncements. That stuff means nothing. It's all about power. And New Hampshire Governor Sununu, who supported Nikki Haley for the Republican nomination, who has trashed Donald Trump in the past, he showed his whole ass yesterday on ABC This Week with George Stephanopoulos. And so, we're about to play it for you right now, and you're going to see it for yourself. And remember, I was on the same show, September 2021, with Chris Christie, and I sat there, and I said it then. Now, I ain't been back on the show since, but everything that I said was absolutely true. Every single thing. And so, we got the Sununu video ready? All right, guys, let's go. When y'all see this, I mean, they tell you. And so this is why I crack up when I hear these people talk about, oh, I'm not going to vote. These things don't matter. You know, you're sitting here, you know, shilling. These people do not care. They do not care. It's all about control. Watch.
Governor Chris Sununu, who worked against Donald Trump during the primaries, has now endorsed the former president. Governor, thank you for joining us this morning. You bet. History being made tomorrow, that criminal trial. Will your support for Donald Trump continue even if he's convicted in Manhattan?
Yeah, look, this trial is not going to have major political ramifications that a lot of people, I think it may have. And when it comes to these issues, people see it more as reality TV at this point. They really do. And so, you know, whether it's a conviction or what that conviction looks like, a lot of folks, they conflate all four of these different trials that he's in. I don't think it's good that he's going to be in the court, have to be in there probably 3 days a week, you know, for a number of weeks. That takes him off the campaign trail. He'll probably go back on the campaign trail and almost like rehash what's going on. He'll try to victimize it, and that has worked for him, right? I mean, this has been going on for over a year, and his poll numbers never seem to go down because of the issue.
Well, yeah, you're going to politics, though. I'm asking you about right and wrong. You think you're comfortable with the idea of supporting someone who's convicted of a federal crime as president? No. I don't think any American is comfortable with any of this. They don't like any of this, of course. But, I mean, when it comes to actually, you know, looking at each of these trials, as they kind of take place, whether it's this year or next year, as they kind of line up, right now this is about an election. Right? This is about politics. That's what people are judging this on. And the ultimate, you know, decision will be in November to see where people are. But for months and even over a year, we've heard that these are the things that are going to bring Donald Trump down. It's not. And to think that the American public is going to be massively swayed by this, politically or otherwise. I'm asking whether you're going to be swayed by it. Yeah. You're a governor. No, you're an elected official. I'm asking whether you're going to be swayed by it.
Yeah, look, nobody should be shocked that the Republican governor is supporting the Republican president. You know what the real story is? The average American that has gone from Biden back to Trump, the average American that is feeling inflation and all these other issues, that says, look, through all this, whether there's a conviction or not, we want a culture change in Washington, D.C., and will continue to support the former President Trump. That's the real story, right? That Trump is leading in the polls across America in a lot of these different polls. So no one should be surprised by my support. I think the real discussion is, you know, America's moving away from Biden. That's how bad Biden has become as president. There's just no doubt about it, right? You can't ignore inflation. You can't ignore the border and say that these issues in the courthouse are going to be the one thing that brings Biden back into office. It's not going to happen that way.
Y'all heard all of that? Utter, flat-out nonsense. This is what I said on the same show, September 2021.
I appreciate the speech, Governor, but the reality is this. You have to admit, Sarah, you have to admit the role that you played in putting the person in leadership who is driving conspiracy theories. It's one thing to condemn them after the fact, but you have to own up to the role that you played in putting the person in power. The time
we both ran campaigns against
No. Let me finish. One second. Can I finish?
Anything to you.
Can I finish?
First off,
can I finish?
You. And second, I ran against Donald Trump in 2016.
You also coached him. Here's the deal. You ran against him. But when a person has principles, morals, and values, they do not support them even if you lose. And what they say is, I choose patriotism and the country over party and power. And the problem was too many Republicans chose power and riding with Donald Trump as opposed to patriotism in America.
I'll sleep fine tonight with you judging my morals.
Well, guess what? As a voter who has 13 nieces and nephews, what I also want to see in America are Republicans and Democrats who have the guts to stand up to narcissists, to folks who lie, to folks who sit here and lead a country in the wrong direction. And what that man has unleashed on this country, any Republican who stood with him has to own it and accept the role that they played.
Yeah, well, that's fine. I'll accept the role that I played in the 2016 election running against him, and I'll accept the role.
Let him finish his point now. Let him finish his point.
And I'll accept the role that I played in my belief that Hillary Clinton was not the right person to be president. We all get to make choices, Roland, in this democracy. I made my choice. I'm on record of my choice, and I'm not walking away from my choice. But it does not preclude me from being able to be critical when the person that I did support does things that I am against. And so this false choice that you're trying to set up,
is that false?
It's a false choice, and one that the American people are not going to buy either.
Here you go, the false choice. Renita, these people, again, it's power. They do not care. They do not care if this man is paid off a porn star. They do not care that he grabbed women by the vagina. They do not care how shameful, despicable he has been. They do not care about his racism when it came to housing. They do not care how he lies. They do not care how he crapped on our troops who lost their lives, and how he called them names. General John Kelly, four-star retired general, of course, Gold Star family member, talked about that as well. This is who this man is. They do not care. So I need all the people who are sitting on the fence, who are talking about, oh, you know what? I'm not going to vote, to understand. These people don't have morals or values or principles or ethics. They are going to enact some of the most gross, disrespectful, shameful policies that are going to have a negative impact on African Americans and others. And people better understand there's no such thing as a bottom with Donald Trump. It doesn't exist. It goes lower than the ocean floor.
Well, Sununu, in what he said, actually let the cat out of the bag, which we all knew, which is it really doesn't matter what Donald Trump does. They're going to support him. And I think that even includes him being convicted in any of these cases criminally, being convicted of felonies or anything. It doesn't matter. They're still going to vote for him because they're not voting for him based on his actions. They're not voting on him based on morals. They're voting for him because they know that he will continue to do what it takes and be very bold about holding white supremacy intact. They are voting to keep whiteness together, and they know that that is what he will do because that is what he campaigns on. And so I think, and this is what I was saying earlier about, why it's important that he's held accountable, is because when you look at the average poor white person here in the South, the Southern strategy for the most part still works. They know Donald Trump doesn't care about them, and they know that he's not going to do anything to help them. They know that. But what they are banking on is that if he gets reelected, he will keep whiteness intact for the most part, and the benefits of white supremacy. And so even if they are not going to have any money, and even if he's not going to do anything economically for them, even if he's not going to do anything to make their life better, at least they will still be able to hold on to whiteness, and that can buy them simple benefits like not being harassed as much by the police, not being over incarcerated the way that our communities have been. That can buy them having an easier day in court if they do have to go to court for something. There are still things that don't cost money that whiteness can buy, and Donald Trump is basically advertising and campaigning on that he's going to make sure that those things stay intact in this country, and that's what Make America Great Again is about. So,
and Julian, this is where people make the mistake, where they believe that we're operating by a set of rules. They believe that, the person does this. When the man trashed Senator John McCain as a POW and Republicans clapped, okay, that was it. They were done. And so people had better understand what these people want to do, what their intentions are. They're telling us what they're going to go after. And folks had better understand before it's too late.
He is exactly laying out what his plan is. He plans to fire civil servants who are not aligned with his agenda. Obviously, all of the GS folks he's going to go after. Government appointees, federal appointees he's going to go after. And you know that in terms of African-American professionals, we tend to be overrepresented among those ranks. So any African-American person who works for the federal government and supports Trump basically is putting a knife to their own throat. But there are those who will do that because they've drank the Kool-Aid. I mean, and that's literally what's happening is I was talking to a guy the other day, one of my neighbors, which I rarely do, but the man was talking, he said, "Oh, don't you know he's just joking?" I'm like, no, he's not just joking. But that a lot of people think he's just joking or he's a little extreme or his rhetoric is out of order. No, his policies are out of order. The rhetoric we could potentially put up with is what he says he will do. And those who are reluctant to vote, Roland, I'm so disgusted. They keep talking about, well, he hasn't done, President Biden has not done enough. Now we got another student loan reprieve. There's some HBCUs. Do you think that President Trump, if President Trump would support HBCUs? No. And we know that. We know that those states who have stolen money from HBCUs through the land-grant colleges, that's federal money. The federal government can play a better role. Trump isn't going to do that. And let's not talk about our rights, our abortion rights, our reproductive health rights. And then just today, the state of Iowa has banned any kind of treatment for trans children. They made it against the law. Now, this goes to a Orange Man Supreme Court. They'll uphold that law. You know that, frankly, when we look at it, he would speak in favor of such a law. We know that the Republican Party has been aligned against difference. These states that are passing laws against diversity, equity, and inclusion. And so discerning people, many of them know better. They know better. But like you said when you set this segment up, it's about power. It's about white supremacy. It's about fear of a black planet, fear that there are more and more African-American, Latino, Asian young people who many, of course, line up with the Orange Man, but more are open and looking at their lives, and they're saying, no, we're not having this. So this is the fear. It's that fear.
But here's the thing, Omokongo, that I think people need to understand. For those people who are on the right, it doesn't matter. So he knows I can do when he said I could shoot somebody on Fifth Avenue and I would not lose support. That was not a lie. And so what I need people to understand is there are no rules here. They don't exist. Mm-hmm. And so you better understand when this man is standing in front of rallies saying, I'm going to deport Latinos, when he's saying the programs they're going to attack, when he says, hey, I wish I had the power like they do in England to just decide when an election takes place. That's what they want to do.
Bro,
believe them. And so for Democrats, stop this. Like all these idiot journalists sitting there. President Biden, he needs to be calling all these people who did support Donald Trump. No, they don't. You better be locking and loading on Democrats saying, if we don't get out to vote, if that fool may be back in, and if he's back in, all the rest of these people, they know they've got an idiot in charge and they can do whatever they want because we know he can't read. We know he can't think. We know he's not smart. He's just happy to sit there and soak in all of the accoutrements of being president.
When you talk about people needing to get on the ball, first of all, that video from 2021, it never gets old. And it just has more resonance. And I'm sitting here, looking at this, right here with white fear. Roland, you got 4 sections in here, and the first 3 are all playing out. The first one was igniting the flame of white fear. And on page 15, part 2 of that was enter Donald Trump. You talked about that. You laid it out. He came in with this. Then you talk about defining the White Fear Manifesto, going to what Dr. Malveaux was saying, redefining American history with the bans and everything else, DEI. And then chapter 3, section 3, you talk about legislating and regulating through white fear. And that's them going after the courts. And, so in those first 3 sections right there, it's all playing out. And we're seeing it with Sununu. We saw it with Ted Cruz before. We saw it with Mitch McConnell as well. I will support the Republican nominee regardless. That's my job as the Republican. And so when they don't care, how much do we care about? And I still feel, Roland, that there are still some people who kind of have that Susan Sarandon mindset of maybe we can handle 4 years of Trump. Maybe, that's what we need right now. Maybe. And on every level, there's a certain level of complacency. I remember 2 weeks ago when we were on and you played that, or 3, when you played that Bill Maher video when he was talking about the NBA and all this race stuff. He started off that segment by saying, I don't care who wins the election. That's how we started off. And so if people want to keep having that mindset, Donald Trump will be back and this country will get whatever it deserves. And if the Sununu video is not the latest one, because Chris Christie started listening to you finally in this election, should have listened to you 3 years ago, right? But the fact of the matter is, if we don't get it on now, he's going to keep lying. I watched your segment when he was at the Chick-fil-A with the fake video of the black supporter. They're going to do everything they can to play dirty because it's about power. Project 25, it's about power. And so this is not the time for us to be cute and fancy and talk about sitting out or, oh, Biden's just not appealing to me. He's not calling me. He's not all of that. This is do or die. Like die as a country, like do or die. And it's only going to get worse. And they're all falling in line once again. Not a lot of them are going to be like Mitt Romney, who said, hey, you get convicted of sexual assault of any sort, that's a disqualifier for me. They don't care. You've written the manifesto. It's time for us to get on the good foot because we only got a few months left to this American experiment if he gets in again.
I simply want people to recognize what is at stake. I am not depending on any Republican to do what's right or just or fair because they want to be in control. So, folks, don't sit here and act like we didn't tell you if it happens.
Fanbase is pioneering a new era of social media for the creator economy. This next generation social media app with over 600,000 users is raising $17 million, and now is your chance to invest. For details on how to invest, visit startengine.com/fanbase or scan the QR code. Another way we're giving you the freedom to be you without limits.
Louisiana, especially black folks, y'all are in for 4 years of hell because they are passing bills that are shameful and despicable and can't be stopped. Y'all gonna love this one here. Roll a video.
108, resisting an officer. For those people who are driving an automobile and is unable to produce identification, the officer can effect an arrest to be able to put the individual in an identification system so they can ID the driver.
So again, if I do not have my identification, what will happen to me today?
Under currently,
under the passage of your bill,
is if and the officer believes you're not giving the correct information, you can't produce identification, and he can't verify what you're telling him, that he has the ability to effect an arrest on you so he can identify you through a computer system that we use based on fingerprints.
So you're adding the fingerprints to this situation. So if I give him my name and he does not think I'm giving the correct information, then he will arrest me.
Yes, ma'am.
During a stop. So what would that look like?
No, this bill would allow them to take them into custody, bring them to a place where they have a system where they can use the fingerprints to identify them. Well, it could be the jail. I think every agency is different. It could be the police station. It could be the parish correctional facility. It could be a local police department, wherever that system is housed at for the parish.
So basically, will not necessarily be if the officer thinks that you're not getting the right information. It's technically for anyone who does not have an ID.
Yes, ma'am.
anyone.
Yes, ma'am. Members, this bill adds a section into 14108 resisting an officer.
That's what's happening in Louisiana. How many black folks in Louisiana? How many? Some also say that they're doing this because they want to go after migrants who come into the country illegally. But y'all know how this is going to actually impact us. Notice how it's going to impact us. Now, here's what's interesting. This tweet right here says, Representative Fontenot from Lafourche Parish, Louisiana, made many claims in his full statement that this was being aimed at illegal immigrants, but none of that is actually lined out in the bill. That's him right there. A Republican from District 55. That's how you contact him. Right there. You got his phone number, his email. Phone number is 985-447-0999. Email is hse055@legis.la.gov. Yeah, he Cajun, he ain't Creole, so he not one of us. So here's the actual bill right here. Now, y'all tell me what you think is going to happen. If the officer, he don't believe you giving the right name. He don't believe you giving the, you don't have your ID. You forgot it. Y'all, I've actually done that. When I left, I thought my wallet was in my backpack. Dang, it was at home. Oh, you get pulled over. Now you can get arrested, take you down. Oh, we're gonna have a system where we're gonna have a system to figure out exactly who you are. Mind y'all, the law says not having an ID, you can get stopped, and they don't even, you didn't commit a crime, but they're gonna ask you for your ID. These are the type of things that are happening all across the country. And when we sit here, Greg, and tell folks why vote matters, it's a whole, Louisiana is passing a slew of laws. Since that MAGA Republican Jeff Landry took, they want to rewrite the whole Constitution, the state Constitution, in 2 weeks. They have been passing laws left and right. And for all them black folks who sat at home, and let me be real clear, the Louisiana Democratic Party was trash. Katie Bernhardt didn't even get elected as the new chair. It's a brother who got elected, and pull up in a second. But then people say, well, man, I ain't know about the election, and did nobody show up? Guess what? Louisiana, especially black folks, y'all are in for 4 years of hell because they are passing bills that are shameful and despicable and can't be stopped. That's what happens when we tell people why vote matters. Greg, go ahead.
No, you're absolutely right, Roland. Of course, listening to you walk through this activity of the white nationalist legislature of Louisiana, it's just a bracing reminder of why this platform matters so much. Even the conversation earlier with Fanika Miller and Black Voters Matter. It may seem like we're fighting an uphill battle, and we are, but we're not fighting a losing battle. To punch through the noise, to punch through the TikTok videos and the YouTube shorts, these are technologies that can be used, but there is no substitute for the slow work of organizing and building collective strength. These people are open enemies of our common humanity. They have absolutely no interest in humanity. They have interest in power. They have interest in their own miserable lives and those of their masters who fund them. And they are running and they maintain their power through shrinking the electorate, for keeping people ignorant, and for appealing to the most base instincts in humanity, hatred and fear. As you talked about Fontenot there, and I won't traffic in stereotypes, but you can look at him and make some assumptions that could be rebuttable assumptions, of course, but when his behavior matches the appearance, what you're looking at is someone whose self-hatred, whose vile self-hatred is projected outward toward people. In that same Louisiana legislature, when you talked earlier about this idea of not allowing children to have breaks, one of the key sponsors of that legislation in Louisiana is a dude named Roger Wilder. Roger Wilder owns 19 Smoothie Kings in the state of Louisiana. I hate to think that when I was down there last month for the Association of Black Social Workers in New Orleans, that I bought a smoothie in a franchise that was owned by him. I hope that wasn't his Smoothie King, but whether it is isn't the point. He owns a number in Mississippi as well. And in the debate over the bill, he said, I don't know why we have a rule in Louisiana that lets these children have breaks. They don't have that rule at my Smoothie Kings in Mississippi. These are the new plantation owners, friends. They don't give a damn about the poor, whatever color they are, and they are shaking in their boots, terrified at the prospect of a William Barber and a poor people's campaign, because they realize, as they knew during Reconstruction, as their predecessors knew, that once poor people get beyond the politics of hatred and fear, they can overwhelm these enemies of our common humanity. And I'll end with this. People wonder, you know, and these same people who will say, you always chilling for the Democrats, or you are, to you or me or anybody else, to Reese or anyone else, you know, to Lauren, to any of us. These are the same people who would say, you're always talking about, you know, you're begging for money and support the network. Do you know why these same corporate interests are not going to plow millions of dollars into the Black Star Network? Because they understand that it's the people who watch this network. The base is Black, but it is hardly exclusive in terms of the viewership of this network. Continue to educate themselves and educate themselves relative to the people who come on this network and share information, who understand the relationship between politics and education and informing oneself. They understand that that is what will threaten their ability to attack our common humanity. That makes this moment more important than ever, because they're on the verge of eliminating the ability to participate in the electoral process in this country. They're beyond it. And you know how you know they're on the verge? Because they are acting now with impunity. They're not even trying to pretend as if they're doing something different.
Reese, this is what Landers also doing. Go to my iPad, Anthony. Bill stripping public access to government records advances in the Louisiana legislature. They're trying to stop journalists from being able to put in freedom of information requests. And he's saying, oh, they're just, you know, well, we can't access the reporter's notes. I'm sorry, y'all are public officials. The reporters are not. And so they want to hide that information. Louisiana is a major state when it comes to the environment. Of course, a lot of petrochemical companies. Look at this here. Top employees at Louisiana Environmental Agency resign in clash with new leader. Sorry, this just popped up. That the new leader is a black MAGA woman. And that's who that is. And so, again, what you're seeing here is the type of things that are happening because folk don't vote. In fact, I'm gonna try to find it. Landry actually had posted a note about, how he overwhelmingly got support from the state. He got 52%, but only 36% of people actually voted. 36% of people in Louisiana actually voted. That means 64% stayed at home, and he's running roughshod with this MAGA agenda. But folk want to criticize us for raising the awareness of this sort of stuff. Yeah, you're shilling for the Democrats. Okay. Hey, knock yourself out for living in New Orleans. I'm sorry, for living in Louisiana under this MAGA rule.
Well, first, to anybody who wants to throw out shilling for Democrats, fuck you very much. I don't give a damn if that's the way you want to put it, to be dismissive of pretty much objective facts on which political parties are doing what. If you have a problem with that and you can't accept that information, then I think that's a personal problem. That's not a reflection of me or anybody on this panel. So let's just start there. But citizenship is always on the ballot in this day and age. It was on the ballot when 60-something% of people in Louisiana decided to stay home. Landry was not given a mandate by any means, but unfortunately, a majority of votes, and in terms of the votes cast, is all you need to become a governor. And so that's what he got. And he has the basic authority to do anything that he wants to do because of the majority having a Republican trifecta in Louisiana. And so when you see bills like the one that you were discussing about now how, basically people can stop you and arrest you if they suspect you of being an undocumented immigrant, that is the reason why it's not limited in the language to that specific demographic is because it is a pretext for fucking with anybody. And who do they normally choose to mess with? Black people. So if you notice, now the rhetoric around Haiti is ratcheting up. See, now that they got enough Black people on their side with the Northern Triangle immigrants, or anti-Northern Triangle immigrants or anti-Mexican immigrants. Now they're starting to pivot to talk about Haitian immigrants and ratchet up that rhetoric around them, because as they're starting to put these laws in place that allow basically omnipotent powers for police to make you have to show your papers, prove that you are an American citizen, prove that you are who you say you are, to their satisfaction, which is subjective. Arrest first and then figure it out later. Meanwhile, y'all ass in jail, and so you done lost your job. You done lost all kind of other stuff because you missed work and whatever else is going on. Car got impounded, whatever. That's for you to figure out all that fallout. So I want people to be very aware of the fact that a lot of these things that you might think are fixing a so-called immigration problem are really just a pretext to strip you of your citizenship. And to your point about the public records, again, citizenship, when you do not have transparency or accountability for your government officials while they're passing laws that are detrimental to your way of life, that is not citizenship. So I need people to wake up. You already lost the ballot box when Landry was elected, but that doesn't mean that you can't hold him accountable. And as these elections are coming up this year, continue to do your part and just go out and vote. If you don't vote, then you just at the mercy of everybody else.
Fanbase is pioneering a new era of social media for the creator economy. This next generation social media app with over 600,000 users is raising $17 million, and now is your chance to invest. For details on how to invest, visit startengine.com/fanbase or scan the QR code. Another way we're giving you the freedom to be you without limits.
The first elected and first black mayor in New Bern, Alabama, has not been able to carry out his duties leaving the town because white folks there have blocked him from taking his seat for 3 years. Patrick Braxton assumed office by default in 2020 when he filed for office, and no one else, including the incumbent, did the same. Previous New Bern mayors had been appointed or ran unopposed, with several serving for more than 10 years. Many residents did not know they were even allowed to have elections. Seriously. Braxton has an ongoing lawsuit alleging the white town leaders arranged an illegal and secret special election, preventing Braxton from appointing a majority black town council and New Bern voters from electing their candidates of choice. And New Bern is about 77 miles southwest of Birmingham, and its population is 80% black, 20% white. However, the town's leadership, except for Braxton and his town council, has been majority white for years. The Legal Defense Fund has filed a preliminary injunction to force New Bern to hold elections and to allow its citizens to vote for the first time in years. My goodness, this is, okay, so I know somebody's watching me right now, and you're saying y'all have got to be kidding. But remember what happened in Ferguson. Same thing, 6-7% black, and for the longest they didn't have a black mayor. You often see this happen in these small towns in Alabama and Mississippi, and so we must understand this is a reality. Marina Fujani joins us right now, special counsel of the LDF. She's been working on this. Okay, so walk us through this. Walk us through this. When is the last time they actually had an election?
So as we understand it, the town of New Bern has not had elections since at least the last few decades. They may not have ever had elections before the Voting Rights Act was passed in 1965.
The last few decades?
That's right.
What the hell? Like, what the hell? Do the people there not get news? Were they seeing elections happening everywhere else and no one said, hey, what about us?
So what's been happening is that different white residents of the town have been appointing themselves and other white residents that they know to the positions of town council member and mayor. And it's been essentially a hand-me-down governance system for the past several decades.
So nobody black said anything? No one? I'm baffled that you could have a majority black town and literally this just went on and it was okay.
I think it is hard to wrap your mind around in terms of why before 2020, when Patrick Braxton decided to run for mayor, why didn't that happen previously? But that just hasn't been the practice. That hasn't been the history. And also remember that this town is quite segregated. So the Black people in the town live in a different part of town, and they have basically tended to take care of themselves by themselves without help of the official town governance.
So, I mean, I get segregation. Okay, so all of a sudden, no one decides to run, so Patrick goes, hey, I'm going to run. And what? They just said, nope, you're not going to be the mayor. I mean, first of all, how does the state attorney general allow this to happen?
I think that's a really good question. I think that's where things really start to get complicated when Patrick Braxton decided to run for mayor. At first, the outgoing mayor did not give him the proper information to qualify for a candidate of mayor, but Mr. Braxton was very intent on running and did the research that he needed to do so that he could still qualify. And then I think the problems really began not only after he decided to run, but it was really after he recruited other residents, and then it was only Black residents who decided to serve on his town council, that the outgoing white power structure decided that they wanted to put a stop to that.
How large is this town's budget? What do they actually control? What are they in charge of?
Well, New Bern is quite a small town that probably has between 200 to about 350 residents. There's the town post office, there's a town hall, there are a few other municipal buildings, but it's really quite small. So I don't actually think that this dispute is about getting a lot of access to town funds. It seemed to be more about holding on to those vestiges of power and trying to maintain that white-dominated town governance.
So since this happened, I mean, have the Black folks there woken up? Have they realized that, man, we've been getting screwed all these years and we now want justice? We want this to be done the right way?
I think since Mayor Braxton decided to run, since he recruited his town council members, since all of the media attention and the lawsuit, I think it has really changed the conversations that are happening in the town of New Bern, and it's making the residents really think about, for the first time, having a town government that serves them.
So where do we stand right now? I mean, is Braxton, is he in office? What's going on?
Where we stand right now is that who the lawful mayor is and who the town council is in dispute. And it's really what the centerpiece of the lawsuit is. And we have a hearing on May 6th that is really going to go to the core of determining who the right mayor and town council should be, and also making the town of New Bern hold elections.
Is this in state court? Is this in federal court?
That's in federal court in the Southern District of Alabama.
Have y'all heard anything from the state?
From the town defendants?
No, from State Secretary of State, from State Attorney General, from the governor. No. Is there where New Bern is I'm sure there's a county government there. So any of the county officials, how about the state rep or the state senator, the member of Congress that represents that area? Anything?
They haven't been in touch with the Legal Defense Fund, but maybe they've been in touch with Mayor Braxton directly.
Wow. It is just stunning that we can be in 2024 and these folks, they're located in the Black Belt, are still trying to actually elect their own mayor in leadership.
Right, absolutely.
That's just wild. So you said the hearing is May 6th?
Yes, that's right.
All right. Well, we certainly will be paying attention to see what happens.
Thank you.
All right. We appreciate it. Thanks a lot. Matt Manning, civil rights attorney out of Corpus Christi. He joins us. Also, Caleb Bethea, communication strategist, joins us as well. Michael Imhotep hosts the African History Network show out of Detroit. Matt, this is absolutely crazy, bro. This is insane.
Yeah, this is not only insane. I thought that there had to be some weird issue with the maybe city ordinances or the codes. So actually, while you were speaking with the attorney, I read the Alabama law because I was just confused. And basically, in most states, they have a whole section of law that that relates to municipalities and corporations and basically how cities and towns are incorporated and what their powers are, all of that. So New Bern would be a Class 8 municipality in the state of Alabama. And the reason I mention that is because oftentimes there are gaps when they're very small cities and towns in terms of their ability to just govern themselves. So I thought maybe they had some kind of weird law that allowed the mayor to appoint everybody on the city council and some of the stuff I read in advance of this segment. But getting down to it, this is out and out racism and out and out preservation of power, because the Alabama codes, as it relates to even Class 8 municipalities, talks all up and through about elections. So the fact that there haven't been elections here, I think is proof positive that there's clearly been a very caustic power dynamic, and there's been a power dynamic where even among 350 some odd people, the black people there have been cordoned off and been rendered unable to participate fully in their democracy. So I'm hoping that the federal judge sees this as just a per se, you are being divested of your 15th Amendment right to vote. You're being divested of your right to be a fully participative citizen. And hopefully he or she, not only issues the injunction, but make sure that the people of New Bern actually get to have a voice.
This is crazy, Kelly. Just crazy.
It's crazy, but it's also really fascinating to me because after, listening to the LDS attorney, or representative rather, I am now curious to know exactly how many other municipalities are in this exact same situation, in that there are hundreds, if not thousands, of small towns just like New Bern, Alabama, and certainly throughout the South. I wonder just how many are in a similar or exact same predicament, in that there are no elections because the town is so small. And, I'm assuming the demographic is relatively older. Usually small towns of this size, we're talking about people who have been there their entire lives, don't really, venture out and then come back. We're talking about people who have been there and have stayed there their entire lives. Residents who, are pretty much used to how things are and aren't necessarily exposed to how things can be or are currently in the rest of the state, rest of the country, and beyond. So I think certainly the white residents of New Bern know and take advantage of that. And not only is that disgraceful, I think it really does need to be explored by the DOJ, because this is, in my opinion, an even bigger issue.
Michael.
Yeah, Roland, I know some people act surprised by this, but this doesn't surprise me at all, especially if you understand the history of Alabama. No, you look at the Alabama State Constitution in 1901, okay, that codified white supremacy. And that's not me saying that. That's the Encyclopedia of Alabama, When you go research it, they instituted poll taxes and literacy tests to suppress the African-American vote. When you go back and look at the lawsuit of Gomillion versus Lightfoot, 1961, this was to fight against the gerrymandering that the state of Alabama was doing in Tuskegee, Alabama, and locking out almost all of the African-American voters and bringing in to this district poor white voters. And Tuskegee, Alabama had a higher literacy rate than the surrounding white counties, largely because of Tuskegee Institute.
But Michael, no. I mean, first of all, you go through the civil rights movement, the Black freedom movement. You got what happened in Selma. You got what happened in Birmingham. You get the Voting Rights Act of 1965. There are only 77 miles from Birmingham. I'm a little surprised you don't have an election since 1965. I mean, that's we ain't say 1985, 1995, 1965.
Well, Roland, January 6, 2021, you had a group of domestic terrorists to try to overthrow the government.
No, I understand that. But an 80% black town, 20% white, not having an election since the 60s. Yeah, that's still shocking.
I'm not saying it's right.
No. I'm saying again, what? There's no news this is sort of like the Japanese soldier, who they found 30 years later, didn't realize the war was over. I just don't understand how people living in this town got no news about any election anywhere else in the country and was like, damn, we ain't had one since 60 something. I'm just saying.
Very quickly here, one of the points I've made before numerous times on this show is oftentimes white people will value our vote and fear our vote more so than we will. Okay, and I'm not trying to condemn anybody in this town. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying white people fear the African American vote, and in the words of the great master teacher historian Dr. John Henry Clark, he would say, "I'm surprised that you're surprised." This does not surprise me.
Since the 60s, it surprises me.
Fanbase is pioneering a new era of social media for the creator economy. This next generation social media app with over 600,000 users is raising $17 million, and now is your chance to invest. For details on how to invest, visit startengine.com/fanbase or scan the QR code. Another way we're giving you the freedom to be you without limits.